William Watson was interviewed on the first day of the year 1933 by the Watford Guide Advocate. It was his 100th birthday. How might Mr. Watson have told his story that day? Well now, young fella, if you really want to know about me, I was born on the first day of the year, 1833, New Year's morning, over in Scotland. Born at home, of course. All babies were on that day. Our home was right across the Firth of Forth from Edinburgh in Fifeshire, Scotland. My father was a gardener on a large estate, had a little house there where I spent my early years. First of 10 children born to my parents, 5 other boys, 4 girls. By the time I was 15, my father told me I had to start contributing. I went to work for an uncle, later hired out as a plowman on a large farm. Now, young fella, you know we was terribly underpaid for all of the farm work we did, especially driving the horses up and down those furrows. Worked hard all day, sun up to sundown. Got only £10 a year. With so little money coming in, we existed on just oatmeal and milk. Occasionally allowed to boil potatoes for ourselves in the plowman's shack. We knew it as the bothy. The hours were so long I decided that any place else couldn't be much worse. One of my uncles had already left for Canada. In one of his letters, he kindly offered to bring me out and provide a home for me. Soon after my 20th birthday, I set out from Glasgow, full of ambition, ready to overcome any hardship or obstacle I might face in this new land. We crossed the ocean on a sailing vessel. Seemed to be just a little tub. Cooked our own food at a large fireplace in a central room. Part of our provisions provided by the ship's company, but part also brought by us. Had to help the crew too, so we did not have much idle time on board. It was a rough trip, at least to me, lasting almost 7 weeks. I am proud to say that the motion sickness caused by the sea never once bothered me. Maybe it was all that porridge and milk that made me into a fine, sturdy man. When we landed and got off the ship, we were in a place called New York. Still had a long way to go to get to Canada, my uncle's farm. Through a combination of forms of conveyance, finally made it to Port Sarnia on a bright sunny morning in late spring of that year. After getting directions, I started to walk east towards my uncle's farm. If I was to close my eyes right now, I could still see in my own mind what it was like that wonderful day. The road from Port Sarnia to Errol had not long been hewn out of the dense forest, and there weren't many folks about that day. All along the way I was serenaded by birds in trees and frogs in the swamp along the edge of the road. Every once in a while I even heard the sound of a cowbell. It took me most of the day. Finally got there. Soon after, my cousin James Marshall and I rented a farm for 10 years. Cut down the trees, burned off the land, sowed wheat among the stumps. Took 3 or 4 years for all those stumps to rot out to get the land in shape for plowing. Hard work back then. You young people don't know what it's like. Can't even realize the hardship we faced. We had to chop down the trees, trim the bark, and then roll those logs into place just to build our own houses. Don't see many of those log houses around anymore. Had to cut our hay with a scythe, rake it with a hand rake, cut our grain with a cradle around the stumps. When our harvesting was complete and all flailed out, we had to load it in a wagon, haul it off to London, find a mill that would buy it from us. When I first came here, the people did not observe the Sabbath like we did back in Scotland. Back there we was brought up strictly to remember the Lord's Day, to learn our catechism, to read our Bible. We could hardly even step outside the house without being told to tack your book. There was no play at all on the Sabbath. It was a day of rest. And as I sees it now, Sundays are not kept at all in Canada these days. As for myself, I've never given up some things. Still have family worship every night. The year I came to Canada, 1853, was an eventful one. The first little Presbyterian chapel was erected in this community at Wiley's Corner on the main road. My uncle was prominent among those who helped to build it. Through all these years, I've been an active member in all church affairs. On January 31st of 1860, I married Elizabeth Wallace. Minister was Reverend William Dees. We were blessed, 7 children, 6 of them still living, thank the good Lord. They will all be here today to help me celebrate this milestone in my life. Fortunately, they all live nearby. Their names are William, Ellison, Elizabeth, Robert, and James. All of them live along the main road here in Warwick. Now, young fella, I see my brother Alexander coming. He's but a youngster, only 84. Came up from Toronto to help me celebrate. Busy day. That's all for your story right now. But come on along and listen. You might hear more for your newspaper account. Mr. Watson, his brother, and his children were joined by many friends and relatives that New Year's Day, as they congratulated him for reaching the century mark and wished him continued good health and prosperity. William Watson lived to be 104 and a half years old.